Oh, I'm fat. I've certainly made quite a few mistakes in life. I don't drink or smoke or never done narcotics, never been in trouble with the law. But I can certainly give some good advice and lessons that I love to teach myself. And I'd asked in a few prior videos, and I didn't know, but there are apparently a lot of younger people that actually do watch my videos. And they know I'm not trying to sell them anything. The only thing I do sell is like leather goods, and certainly can't complain about somebody that has a lot of skills and puts hard manual labor into production of something. You know, the government's always trying to shaft you and me. Yeah? Taxes, sales tax, property tax. You know, property tax is no different than a vehicle car tag that you pay every year, and it's based upon how much your vehicle is worth, right? What about doing the same things? And I don't think it was Jesse James that said it, but it could have been. Said, why do you go after the banks? And Jesse James says, because that's where the money's at. And I don't care about politics at all, but it's really funny. And Dave Chappelle, who is of course very funny, brought it up again. It was something that was said many years ago. And I think it was Hillary or something, was pointing at the orange man bad and said, you know, this guy doesn't pay any taxes. And very brilliantly, even the people that don't like him, and I don't care either way about any candidate or any politician because they're all evil and corrupt and they're power hungry, his response was, because I'm smart. You know, tax code is written into legislation by people, and if you watch what they do, you'll see the exceptions that they actually give to themselves. And the huge one is land and real estate. You know, I had so many people tell me the bleeding obvious. They're like, well, if you own the land, you still don't technically own it because you got to pay property tax. I don't have to pay property taxes every year. I know that. You don't pay it, they'll actually sell your land on the courthouse steps, depending on where your land is at after a given period of time. Sometimes years and years and years. Sometimes much shorter than that. It's like, I know that. But where do these people give themselves tax exemptions? And I'd actually like to give some really, really important advice, and it's something I've done for most of my life, but you know, even though I knew my teachers at a young age were incredibly unintelligent and should not be listened to, I still made mistakes where you'd see, you know, shiny things. It isn't necessarily materialism, but it is materialism. Like, oh, I really have to have that, you know, my life would be more complete. And the older you get, you realize you don't need any of that crap. I don't really have much. I mean, I got quite a bit of land, and I'm diversified what little assets that I have, even though I've never had a real vacation. It's not just the money of having a vacation. It's when you take the vacation, you have all the lost revenue of the things that you need to do work-wise. When you take the vacation, which I recently took a horrible hit by, you know, taking basically a couple weeks off to go to Florida. But what about taking advantage of the fact of what you can legally do, since the government is always trying to stick it to you and me, and right now everybody's struggling and everybody's looking for simple advice to how they can actually better themselves. It doesn't mean you want to be rich, it just means you don't want to be, you know, constantly in a perpetual state of motion and worry like everybody is right now. And I've asked a lot of people, and a lot of people tell me they're living off either their savings or their credit cards or both. A really big secret everybody should learn, by the way, and I'm not going to really talk about it very much, but you should look into it, that all credit cards are unsecured debt. Go look up what unsecured debt is, as opposed to like a car loan or a house loan. Look up unsecured debt. I really won't talk any more about that. I've been made fun of by a few people that I've got like $13,000. Roughly it's about $13,000. Here's one of them. My latest acquisition of sewing machines, and I actually do need this because it does things my other sewing machines don't do. It's like, why do you have $13,000 of sewing machines? Well, one, you know, even though they're really quite expensive, just using this as a simple example, they make money. Of course, I have to have the skills. You know, just having it doesn't make any money. You know, have to know what you're doing. You have to have the raw materials to make things with it, but these things do make money. And very importantly, I tell people, this is a tax write-off. Every year, I completely write this off my taxes. Also, too, the materials I use to feed it, and any travels incurred by me to take these materials, and I'm only using this as one example that affects me personally, that's helpful. And there's thousands of things like this in the tax code. My tax guy actually worked for the IRS for over 40 years. He's, I think he's in his late 70s. I should know this. I'm sorry I don't. Really, really awesome guy. I like him a lot. Super sweet. He watches my videos, which I don't know why. He says, I really like your videos. Very brilliant. And the stuff that can be written off, and I learned this from hanging around quite a few rich people. Rich people, the reason why they like me is because, one, I never ask them for money. And number two, I can give them advice on things that, like, you know, what's the best XYZ to buy, where to get it, why you should do this, and because I'm full of a lot of information. Some people think I'm full of a lot of other stuff, but I am, you know, quite intelligent. I know how to find deals on things. But I like to give some really helpful advice. I wish it was something I was taught much, much earlier in life, and some older people still make this mistake, which they shouldn't, but young people really, really make it. I'd like to get that here in a minute. I like to quote things collectively from some people that are mega, mega rich that are not trying to sell anything to anybody, like Ray Dalio or Warren Buffett or a few other people. There's a conglomerate of like about 20 of them. And I'm not pretending this is a video on money. I am proposing that everything I say in this video is accurate if you think about it, and it definitely is, and the things I wished I learned earlier in life. One of the things is that right now, of course, the Fed is printing money like it's going out of style. Inflation's running rampant. There's another step that happens. These experts have always predicted, like in 2008 and back in the big stock crash earlier, and the prior century, that always happens when you can't raise inflation anymore. You need to take another drastic step. Think about asset diversification into things that the Fed can't print. I think most of you who have left comments to me agree that the Fed is an evil entity. What are the things that they can't print? And having paper certificates of like gold and silver doesn't count. That's no different than money. Paper is paper is paper. And crypto is even way worse. What can't the Fed print? Oil, silver, gold, or land. There's a few other things like that. And there's necessities that people have to have in life, regardless of how dire the times are. There's fundamental things like, if you're going to die tomorrow, what's the important stuff in your life? Your family, hopefully you have a good will to leave something, to people that you care about. But if you're in a survival situation, what are the important things that you need to keep your head afloat and take care of yourself and your family? And if you can learn a lot about those things, and I'm not talking about speculation or investing, I'm just talking about asset diversification, where the Fed is printing money like it's going out of style, and it's just sitting in your vault or sitting in the bank. It has the most demonic tax possible, which is inflation. I mean, it's literally turning your money into trash. Remember that Zimbabwe dollar? It's like $1 billion in Zimbabwe. It's a billion Zimbabwe. I'm not saying the United States is going there very soon, but it's going there very fast. Did you know, by the way, and having lived in communist Russia for quite a long time, and lived in Russia for quite a long time, did you know that central bank, i.e. the Fed, like we have here in the United States, is a central part of Marxism? By the way, there's a great book you could download, or you can buy it on Amazon.com. It's called Marx and Satan. That's the title of the book. Marx and Satan. You could actually read about the hero of the poor people, Karl Marx. He himself hated, really, really despised poor people. He hated poor people. He smelled really bad. He kind of refused to ever take a shower or a bath. Him and his wife hung out at seances and places where spirits were conjured. That's not like hearsay or rumor or slander. Rather, Karl Marx, and that was a thing kind of back in the day. It was kind of like a type of entertainment, but this is a horrible person. I mean, I'm sorry, I can't stand communism at all. You don't have to like politics one way or the other, and I don't, to make that statement. So the interest rate and monetary policy is that the Fed, of course, is printing money like it's going out of style, and last time it crashed bad, the interest rate hit 0, And that's exactly what's been happening recently. Step two supposedly is printing more money, which is exactly what's happening. Widening wealth gaps, which we're all seeing the middle class destroyed. I'm 50 years old. I've seen the middle class, and this is a very normal section with a healthy economy here in Lexington. I've seen the middle class absolutely destroyed. I've seen the super rich now and the super poor and almost nothing in between. It did not used to be that way. Step number three, before the poo hits the fan, is issuance of debt by the government. Instead of printing money, which they can't print so much money, they start issuing debt, and they use that through the banks. And of course, what's going to eventually happen is central bank digital currency, which of course is no different than absolute tyranny and huge big government control. I've said many, many times I don't think I'm ever going to be able to retire, and I don't care about money. I care about being able to think and discover and learn, and wisdom is of utmost paramount importance to me. And wisdom is its own reward, but it certainly doesn't pay the bills. And I make things, and I work several jobs, and I basically do work 7 days a week. I mean, I really wish that were not true, but it is true. But when we say retirement, I mean, were we talking about money? Because I thought that retirement was supposed to mean freedom. And I know why everybody is engaging in this cancel culture or quiet quitting. Not cancel culture, excuse me, quiet quitting, where they don't want to show up to work. I mean, why work your butt off and destroy your life if you're only making enough money to squeak by? And this gets to the most important point here in just a second. I'd like to go down a list of 6 points too, because debt is slavery. But please learn about what non-secured debt actually is. Which is better? It'd be better to be free or in comfortable slavery. I don't have a house payment and a car payment, and I don't have a wife or kids. I wished I had a wife or kids. Of course, my wife is dead. She died of cancer. But this idea of scrambling every day to make ends meet, which is what people are doing now, and they want a way out of that. And this is a very important lesson that I wished I learned a whole lot earlier in life. I've never owned a new vehicle. This house is kind of dumpy, the house I'm in. And it's not in a bad neighborhood. It's a brick house. It's well built, but I only paid $66,000 for it. I got it from people that were going through a bad divorce. There was like some holes punched in the walls from them fighting or whatnot. Who cares? It could be easily fixed. People want to start out with the best stuff, and of course everybody wants the best stuff, but why not ease? And which would you rather have, like a decent amount of assets and a dumpy house, or like a really nice house that you're proud to show off to parties and neighbors like, wow, this is a nice house. Like, yeah, I got a 30-year mortgage on this. I'll never get it paid off, and its value because the real estate market is about to crash. And by real estate, I mean this. This type of real estate is different than raw land. Barring people literally dropping dead left and right, raw land is going nowhere but up. People say real estate, they are also thinking raw land, but they should not be. Farms and raw land, incredibly valuable. I've never had interest in this type of structural real estate at all, nor do I have much money at all to play with in real estate. Number one, you can't trust crypto of any variety, none whatsoever. You can hate me for saying that all you want. Number two, cannot trust any bank or institution where money passes through it. I don't trust it, and I never will. Number three, never ever trust the government. Anything the government says, the opposite is true. Like recently, the Inflation Reduction Act. If the government says it does one thing, you're guaranteed 100% it's going to do just the opposite. So the Inflation Reduction Act is what it's going to do is raise inflation, and it's done, the movement towards that has done exactly that. Number four, civilization is the thinnest crust over the world's largest, most dangerous volcano. Kind of like Yellowstone National Park. Could like lower the temperature of the Earth by like 5 or 6 degrees for the next 15 or 20 years. It's like, it's a beautiful, idyllic park. It's like, yeah, it's a thin crust over top of a super volcano, which could completely wreak havoc on the Earth for quite a long time and cause a new dark ages. It turns out that the dark ages really were actually dark, and the reason why people starved to death and froze to death is because the temperature did drop and crops failed, on and on and on. There's apparently an enormous amount of evidence for this now in the past 15, 20 years. as opposed to we just called it the Dark Ages. We thought that was metaphorical, and it turns out that the Dark Ages were actually literally dark. Number 5, invest in skills and money into fundamentals that people must have. And like an important point to make on this regarding the gold rush, the people that, because California and the West Coast was settled by gold diggers, literally by gold diggers, and that's where part of the zeitgeist and the ethos of the West Coast, no offense, actually comes from, because it was settled by gold diggers. By the way, U.S. household debt has jumped to $16.5 trillion, an increase of 8.3%, the fastest rate since the last crash of 2008. Take that into consideration. Here's an important point about everybody that's like a young person. Let me say Gen Zs, is that all these people since 2008, because these people, these young people, if they were in diapers in 2008, they've never seen a crash. They've seen nothing but a bull market. They just keep thinking it's going to go up and up and up, and that's all they've known. So ask yourself, these young people that think they know what's going to happen, it's like, where were they when they were in diapers? They have known nothing but a bull market because they were in diapers, in 2008 or thereabouts. They've never seen a bear market. Oh, the other good one I heard from an expert, I don't know if it was Ray Dalio, I think it was, a financial expert. He said, the bulls rush up the stairs and bears jump out the window. Meaning, in a bull market, things surge and they're kind of predictable. In a bear market, bears jump out the window. So that's a brilliant one. Bulls rush up the stairs and bears jump out the market. Here's an important point, and this is mine. Someone have probably said it differently in a different way, some financial expert, and I do not claim or even pretend to be one, okay? But I have made wise choices now that I'm 50, that I should have made when I was in my 20s. I was focused on field theory, metaphysics, and philosophy for much of my life. Wisdom is still number one most important thing to me, but as important as that is, I would still love to take a day off a week. I'm not interested in money. The only reason any real person cares about money is to have time to enjoy friends or family, hang out with your kids, do things, experience life, go to a museum and look at beautiful paintings, study philosophy, stuff like that. The important things. The lesson that you should learn, and this is 100% undeniable, you could call it whatever you want. I call it pouncing or jumping, and it's a serious issue. Like, you get money and you don't set a budget, you're literally climbing, you're scurrying from one buck to the next, and the only thing you can see is what's in front of you, kind of like a frog, looking for flies directly in front of it, or looking for a lily pad to jump. You're like, there's another lily pad, there's another. The important thing is to have a cushion. There's a difference between letting your money sit there and rot and, of course, be destroyed by inflation, but having the ability to pounce on something. Rather, when you scurry from buck to buck, scrambling from dollar to dollar actually makes you more broke. Huge, huge, huge lesson in my life. 100% undeniable and irrefutable. You should learn this because maybe some financial expert has said this in a different way. Yeah. Obviously, everything is about setting a budget. It's like, this is what my income is this month. Some people don't know what their income is. They have to work for every buck. And half of what I do, or more than half what I do, is exactly like that. Is that instead of jumping from every buck to buck, which makes you more broke, is thinking where to pounce. Have a cushion such that you're able to hunt out, well, this is a okay opportunity, but I'm going to work really hard to make very little money. Over here is something great. I don't have to work very hard. The profit is great. And to pounce on that, since you have a cushion, so you're not perpetually hopping from buck to buck to buck to buck. When you do that, you put your blinders on. You can't see good opportunities out here at all. This is a really important lesson I wished I could teach myself when I was younger, and it's a really important lesson you need to have to understand. You can call it whatever you want. But if you are struggling for every buck, and most everybody is, including me, I have hardly any money to my name at all. But I buy used and cheap. I buy used clothing on eBay. Believe it or not. If you don't believe me, I'll send you screen captures of my recent purchase history off of eBay. Used, pre-owned, they call it. Clothing off of eBay. Never owned a new vehicle. I love used gear. and you should, and this stuff is not taught in high school or college at all. Learn about tax code. You ask yourself, and we all know these super rich people, I mean, a lot of them are really, really, really dumb. It's like, how's this person doing so well? They learned about tax code. They learned about all the loopholes, especially in land. I have a 100% track record on buying certain things that I'm extremely skilled and very knowledgeable about, and you should be too. And the other one, I have a perfect track record on land. Making that land work for you. Huge issue is that a certain percentage of anybody's assets should at least be producing something to help you and your family. People are like counting money they have in the bank rather than thinking, well, the money's just sitting there. And then they think, well, if it's not just sitting there, maybe I should invest it. You have to have crazy freaking skills, and then you're gambling your money. What about things that you actually know it's a safe investment? You know, and I put money in these machines, I get all my money back I put into these machines next year as a tax write-off, and in the meantime, the money I have spent, which I'll get all 100% of it back in a tax write-off, I can use to make things, to make money. There's thousands of things like this in the tax code, and the one that has the most loopholes, period, is property, real estate. However, I don't care about this type of real estate, structure real estate. Number one, I don't have the money for it. Number two, there's a billion different variables and it like changes daily. I know raw land and I know it really, 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 really good. Period. You know, stick to what you know. If you're safe, you're like, you know it. After you bought it, you know you got it. You get no, like, oh God, I shouldn't have done that. I've never done that on raw land. 100% track record on that. Nobody could have all these skills to be both perfect investors and like perfect investors in raw land and or structure real estate, which is a different type of real estate altogether. It's kind of like people talking about, well, I make boots or stuff. It's like, yeah, they use leather, but that's a totally different type of skill. Structure real estate is a completely different type of skill to raw land real estate. But please learn not to scramble from dollar to dollar. It makes you poor. You need to have a cushion where you could sit there in the dark, not literally, sit there in the dark and look out on the horizon. That's so, so important. Instead of being myopic and only being able to see the bucks ahead of you, like here's a buck, here's 10 bucks. You need to be able to sit out there what you can pounce on. It's like, this will help me and my family a lot. This will help my portfolio. This will help me a lot. And I can use it to put, you know, I can use this in a tax code write-off, and there's a million different codes. And God, I have no pretense to assume the endless thousands of codes that are in tax code when it comes to real estate. And I know for a fact that there are a lot. You think, what do you think these rich people aren't paying taxes? Yeah, they make $1 million. It is all rigged. The people that wrote these tax code are the rich people that own a lot of real estate. They designed the tax code to take advantage of the fact that they pay very, very little, if any, taxes at all every year. Because there's a million loopholes in real estate. Have you ever asked yourself that? Not only do you use the land or the real estate to make money for you, there's an enormous amount of loopholes in it. You borrow against it. Oh, there's all these really complicated tax codes involving real estate. Why don't you like download a list, and there's lists out there everywhere about learning about that. I wished I'd been taught that earlier in life. I do not even pretend to be any kind of expert on that, but I know it's 100% real. This is what the rich people, and I know some rich people, they take advantage of that big time. One that I take advantage of that I learned about a long time ago is the code of, I forget the name of it, it's a farming exemption. You have the property taxes are basically nothing. My 75-acre piece, you know how much my property tax code on it was? I just paid it like 8 days ago. $123. 75 acres, property taxes were on $123. It was like, oh my God, that's a lot of land, 75 acres. What about the property tax? $123. Learn about the rich people rigged the system and tax code. Not my feeling, opinion, or belief, hardcore fact. Rigged the tax code. It's the reason why they pay very little to no taxes. For real estate, both raw land and commercial and business and residential real estate. There's all kinds of tax code. Learn about that. It would not actually even take you a few days to learn it. I don't even begin to know more than about 5% of it. I only need to know enough to know a good bit about raw land things regarding real estate and property taxes and things you could write off. It's like, oh, I took a hit, I had a crop, and I lost my ass because there was bad weather, and oh, that's a tax code, that's a tax write-off, that's going to reduce your tax. Oh, really? See, you lost. There's so many, and some of them are shocking. It's like, is that real? It's like perfectly legal. There is power in knowledge. Knowing these things is incredibly helpful to you and your family. But please learn that one about scrambling from dollar to dollar rather than having a cushion so that you can breathe and you know what to pounce on and what not to pounce on. You can see the whole field instead of just like a pig, what's in front of you. That's what a pig sees, just like oink, 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 I see this. You need to be able to see all of that. And that way it's always best for you and your family and your life. I mean, there's just no ifs, ands. Here's the last thing I want to mention. The gold rush. When everybody thought they're going to get rich during the California gold rush, and like 99.99% of the people out there, they didn't get rich at all. But the people that had 100% success rate that traveled to these areas, both Alaska and California during the gold rush, just think about that for a second before I give the answer. All the people that rushed out there with pans and pickaxes and all that stuff to get rich, and 99.9%, they're bust or dead, or worse even, really, believe it or not. Versus nearly 100% success. The people with nearly 100% success who are the ones who took their money, bought a bunch of mercantile stuff. The mercantile people that set up shop out there, who were often paid in gold dust. Yeah, because these people didn't have any money. They already ran out of money shipping themselves across the country to California or to Alaska. They spent every penny they had, so all their money was gold dust. These mercantile people that sold picks and shovels and food and grain and rice and tents and bedding and pillows and shovels and sluices. These people had 100% success. People that really got rich with extremely high percentage of success rate were the mercantile folks. Kind of like, have you ever seen Little House on the Prairie? The only people that ever got rich in town were not the farmers. Were always kicking their butts and struggling to survive, and working out in the farm, and the storms had come and ruined the crops. The only people that were doing great were the Olsons. Remember the Olsons from Little House on the Prairie? It's the same thing during the gold rush of California, the gold rush of Alaska. You need to think like the Olsons, or the people that bought as many pieces of mercantile as they could. They would buy literally axes and sluices and bed sheets and canned food and ship themselves to California, to Alaska. They would sell it for 10 times, 20 times, even higher what it was actually worth. So they got like 100,000% in some instances their money back. They used that to buy more supplies. They'd send notes over telegraph or Pony Express to have more mercantile. They would buy it and they would pay for it to be shipped out to there. And these people are getting filthy rich. You need to think like the Olsons or these people during the gold rush days of the mercantile. People that follow gold are the ones that always end up broke. They really do. 99.9% of them. You got to think like the mercantile folk. Don't put all your eggs into one basket. Learn these tax codes because the rich use them, and there's a reason why these mega rich people are not paying any taxes or extremely little taxes. There is a tremendous amount of tax code written in for real estate, including raw land, including for commercial real estate, including residential real estate, and that is so important. I wished I learned these lessons earlier in life. It's the reason why now I basically struggle. Also, I know I'm not starving to death, as is blatantly obvious. But, I don't care about money. I would just like to have a little time for more study and thinking, and I would love to have like a real vacation someday. You can't have everything. I'm certainly not looking for everything. I don't have a wife or kids, which I wished I did have, but, I'd like to have a little bit of comfort in life. But I would rather have this dumpy house that I live in and buy used clothing off of eBay than a nice house, a relatively nice house. Nothing fancy. I've never had anything. I've never owned a new car. I've never really had anything fancy. I had a gold Rolex once, a Submariner. My wife got it for me. I guess that's the most fancy thing I ever owned. I got rid of it, and now the last 2 minutes of my video got clipped because I extended the video out a little too long. I'd like to close up with my remarks in this video by stating the important points I made about jumping from dollar to dollar is 100% undeniable, incredibly helpful. I wish I'd taken advantage of that earlier in life. Please learn about why these super rich people pay very little to no taxes. I mean, we can shake our fist at them all day long, but these are the people that created that tax code. They take advantage of it, and there's absolutely nothing that says that you can't take advantage of it too. Like I said, I get a farming exemption on land. You know, you could have losses on your land and use that as a tax break. There's so many things, and I don't even pretend to know more than a surface scratch of all the loopholes there are in real estate. The system is rigged. Anybody with a half a brain knows it. The important point is to take advantage of it. You and I both know that the government is sticking it to us. We're overtaxed. There should not be property taxes. There should not even be income taxes, but there are. But there are loopholes in the tax code, legal loopholes that are there in the code. And the rich people take advantage of it, and it would not take you or me or anybody else more than a couple days to learn the most important ones and take advantage of those. I wished I learned these lessons earlier in life, but I did not. But I know now that they're 100% true and 100% undeniable, and I would rather live. Depends on how somebody wants to live. Some people really care about how they present themselves to other people. Oh, you got such a nice house and so beautiful. It's like, yeah, it's great. You know, I got a 30-year mortgage on it, and I'll never, ever pay it off. Or you live in a, you know, halfway dumpy house like this, even though it's a brick house in a halfway decent neighborhood. It's nothing impressive about it. No one's going to step into this house and go, oh, God, yeah, that's awesome. It's like, yeah, okay. Kind of run of the mill. But, I mean, it's paid for. You know, and it's a real house. It's a real brick house, and it's in a halfway decent neighborhood. I mean, what are your priorities in life? And everybody needs to ask themselves that. Set a budget, learn about tax code, learn about the things that instead of sticking money in your bank, you know, which is nice to have it there, but it's just sitting there. Not only is it sitting there, but now it's rotting due to the worst type of tax on it at all. Whereas losing money just sitting there, not only you do not get interest, you're losing money just sitting there because of inflation. You know, like me writing off the sewing machine. It's not only making money for me, but it's 100% write-off of my taxes, legally so. It's a business expense. That is part of my business. Things that you sell, depreciation, learn about it. It's way better, by the way. My tax guy worked for the IRS for like 40 plus years. He's an older guy. Find somebody like that. Don't go down to H&R Block and get somebody with like 2 weeks of training. You know, wouldn't you rather like save many thousands of dollars by paying a tax guy, say, $800 fee as opposed to like a $120 fee at the, you know, the H&R Block guy? These people don't know anything. Some of these people know a few loopholes, but not many. Legal loopholes. I'm not saying illicit or anything. I mean, we can scoff at that all they want, but it doesn't matter whether someone's rich or poor, and I'm quite poor. We all have the right to take advantage of that. There's nothing in the tax code that says this only applies to rich people. The only difference between you and me and the rich folk, other than the money that they have, is that they have high-priced lawyers with the skills that know all these loopholes in the tax code. Please learn them. It's incredibly important, and I hope you like this video. If you ever want to contact me, my email is in the description below. Have a lovely week. Goodbye.